A man living alone can close his door and feel relief. Another can hear the same lock click and feel the whole evening go silent. Living alone can offer freedom, routine, and purpose. Yet it can also hold loneliness. Sometimes, both experiences occupy the same home. That tension is not a slogan. In one small group of 14 men aged 60 to 92, living alone was described through self-determination, structure, purpose, and general satisfaction. Other older men described some freedom, while also missing a shared life and feeling lonely at times. So a one-person home cannot be stamped simply good or bad. The useful questions are what brought a man there, whether the life fits him now, and whether anyone dependable remains within reach. Those three questions separate peaceful privacy from a quieter form of disconnection. Living alone describes a household arrangement. Loneliness describes a gap between the connection someone has and the connection he wants. Social isolation describes an objective shortage of contact or relationships. They overlap, but they are not interchangeable. A man may treasure an empty kitchen at breakfast and still have people he can call by lunch. Another may share a house and feel unseen. The address reveals very little about the emotional life inside it. Nearly 3 in 10 American adults aged 65 or older lived alone in 2022. That tells us the arrangement is substantial, but it tells us nothing about motive. A front door can close after a wanted move, a divorce, the death of a spouse, an illness, retirement, or a housing constraint. The beginning matters because bereavement should never be mistaken for a preference for solitude. Yet the beginning is not the whole story, because an unwanted transition can later become a valued way of life. That is why present preference deserves its own question. For the men who valued solo life, self-determination, structure, balance, purpose, and general satisfaction belong together. This is one possible form of living alone. A man values the arrangement he has now and controls the structure of his own day. But present satisfaction does not reveal how the household began. A move shaped by loss or disruption may carry a different history, even if privacy later becomes valuable. Routine can be where freedom becomes visible. Repeated tasks and purposeful activity can give private time a shape. Regular calls, texts, online contact, and planned meetings can place connection inside that structure. An orderly day can carry connection, or it can organize private time without supplying it. A routine may express purpose, provide points of contact, or fill time after a familiar connection has been broken. Its meaning depends on what it contains, not merely on how consistent it looks. The feeling of choice also changes the quality of time alone. When adults across different ages actually wanted a moment of solitude, they experienced it more positively. Closing the door because quiet is welcome feels different from having the quiet imposed. But a chosen evening is not the same as a one-person household. It cannot tell us why a man lives alone, whether he wants to continue, or whether the rest of his week contains enough connection. A positive solitary moment still cannot answer whether solo residence fits his life. The smaller social circle needs the same care. As networks narrow across adulthood, peripheral ties may fall away while close ties remain more stable. Older adults can also describe a warmer emotional tone within a smaller network. That makes selective narrowing plausible. People may invest more in relationships that matter and allow weaker contacts to fade. Yet a shrinking circle may also reflect loss, illness, limited mobility, or circumstances rather than choice. A compact circle can be satisfying. It can also become brittle when too much depends on one remaining person. Circle size alone does not reveal whether emotional or practical help remains available. That brittleness is the part romantic accounts of solitude tend to miss. In one group of men followed across much of adult life, the average number of emotional support providers fell from about 2 to 1 between ages 30 and 90. A single dependable person can mean a great deal, but emotional support may then depend heavily on that one relationship. The meaningful question is not how many names sit in a phone. It is what kind of help is actually available when life becomes difficult. Emotional health brings the trade-off into sharper view. In a national snapshot from 2021, adults living alone reported to find feelings of depression more often than adults living with others. 6.4% compared with 4.1%. Those were unadjusted numbers from one point in time, not evidence that the address caused the feeling. The picture differed when support was considered. Among adults who received needed social and emotional support, at least sometimes. There was no statistically significant depression difference by living arrangement. That does not prove support eliminates risk. It shows why an address is too crude to serve as an emotional diagnosis. Support must be considered separately from whether someone shares a home. Loss makes this distinction especially tender. After a spouse dies, loneliness often peaks near the loss, but later paths vary. Older bereaved adults have described the disappearance of familiar routines, followed in some cases by building new routines, new connections, and an identity as an individual rather than half of a couple. That is adaptation, not proof that the loss became desirable. It also is not a guaranteed recovery arc. A quiet home can move from shock to coping toward a workable individual life, while moments of longing remain. Divorce can lead to the same misleading snapshot. Seeing an older man unpartnered years later does not reveal whether he rejected intimacy, lacked a suitable opportunity, faced health or money limits, or simply preferred his current arrangement. Many men do repartner after later life divorce, often through cohabitation rather than remarriage. So permanent solitude cannot be assumed from the breakup, nor can wealth be ignored. In higher-cost places, unmarried older adults were less likely to live alone after personal resources were considered. Privacy has a price, and preference is easiest to express when alternatives are affordable. Taken together, these paths explain why two men with identical mailing addresses may be living opposite emotional realities. One has enough chosen quiet and reliable contact. The other has more quiet than he wants, and no dependable route back into connection. A third may enjoy the independence while grieving what is missing. Freedom and loneliness are not rival verdicts. They can rise and fall with health, money, loss, routine, and the availability of people who answer. A fair self-check therefore begins with fit rather than appearance. Does the amount of household privacy match what the person currently wants? Is actual contact close to desired contact? If a difficult week arrives, is there someone for emotional support, useful information, or practical help? Are peripheral ties fading while the close core remains? Or is the final core disappearing too? Does routine create purpose and regular points of contact, or does it mostly fill hours left by a broken connection? And are other living arrangements genuinely available or only imaginable on paper? None of these questions diagnoses a man. Together they reveal more than the number of chairs at his table. For a man who values solo life, preserving it does not require pretending he needs nobody. A small circle can stay small and still have more than one support route. Regular contact can remain regular without turning privacy into obligation. For a man who feels trapped by the silence, disliking the arrangement does not mean he has failed at independence. The relevant movement may be modest, recognizing that present contact falls short of desired contact, noticing that one support relationship carries everything, or admitting that a routine, once built for coping, no longer feels like a life. These are distinctions, not prescriptions. They leave room for dignity, preference, and change. So when an older man says living alone gives him peace, that account deserves respect. When he says the evenings have become lonely, that deserves equal respect. The dividing line is not masculinity, the size of the home, or whether outsiders approve. It is the relationship between wanted privacy, wanted connection, and available support. Peace has room for other people, even when they do not share the address. Withdrawal becomes costly when the circle no longer meets the need, and there is no reliable way to reach beyond it. A locked door can protect quiet or seal in loss. The sound is the same, the life behind it is not. And only the man living there can tell us which meaning fits today.